are so ready, so ready. I promise you guys, we are going to have this thing in order this morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you all for tuning in. It is part 2 of our series on facing forgiveness. So I'm super excited. Thank you guys so much for coming on. My name is Dr. K, and we are ready to talk about forgiveness. Yes, forgiveness. Can you believe it? It is our time to get this thing going in a different way. Forgiveness is hard enough, but when we start talking about ourselves, that takes it to a whole different level. So I am ready to get started this morning. Let's see what we got going on. Let's see if we have any of our friends on. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you so much for being on. I am Dr. K, and again, this is part 2 of Facing Forgiveness, and it's about us, forgiving me. When we get ready to forgive or we think about another person, that thing looks very different. When we start talking about ourselves, we can be very hard on ourselves. So as more of our friends get on this morning, let's just see what we have going on. Good morning, good morning. When you jump on, go ahead and drop a line so I know who I have in the building, who's on with us. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Yes, yes, and yes. I'm excited. I cannot wait to delve a little bit deeper into this conversation because it is a much needed conversation. I know myself, I have struggled with forgiving me. The grace that I so easily give to other people, I don't always feel like it's okay to extend it to myself. And in my faith walk, I've learned to be a whole lot better. So this morning, as I'm talking with you, I pray that we're going to be able to work through this thing together. So good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you for being on. And if you clicked a different chat, I do apologize, but I'm excited this morning. So let's just get it going. Let's get right into it. So why is it so difficult to forgive me? When another person hurts us, we can say, you know what, I forgive you. I'm going to let that thing go. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. But when we talk about being able to release, it's very different. And I was doing my research this week and I'm like, Lord, tell me why that thing is so difficult for all of us. Because it's the $1,000,000 question. How do I forgive myself? How do I let it go? Those things from my past, and as I was sitting and I was thinking about it, I realized it's easier to forgive a person that is not inside of us because we wrestle in here in our minds. We have this whole conversation where we're beating ourselves up and the other person doesn't live in our brain. So when we fall short, when we don't meet our own expectations, it looks different for us. We start to think a little bit differently. We start to move a little bit differently. We rehearse the images in our brain of how we did the wrong and, why we shouldn't be forgiven. We start really just beating ourselves over the head. And the thing about it is, even if you say, you know what, I forgive me, this is going to be okay, I'm going to move forward, we really don't move forward because we play it over and over like a broken record in our mind. And then what we do once the record is broken, we start remixing that thing. We start shaping it in a different way. So, and I was thinking this week, I said, you know what, Lord, how do we kind of peel back the layers of this thing? How do we kind of let it go and release it? What are those main features of unforgiveness for ourselves? Well, there are 2 major co-conspirators, yep, 2 of them. And that is guilt and shame. And now some of us think about forgiving ourselves and we'll say, well, yeah, I do. I know when it's certain things that I've done, I might feel that guilt or that shame, but why are we feeling it? When we think about it, things such as loss, infidelity, the love of being hurt by a loved one, or you not protecting someone you were supposed to protect, that thing starts to feel different in our mind and it will haunt us. And in my life, I've had some very close and intimate experiences with both guilt and shame. I have to be honest. And I'm going to go a little bit deeper. I'm going to be as transparent as I can be in this moment. But first, I want to start with guilt because when we think about guilt, a lot of us will say, well, guilt is so negative. I don't want to sit there. I don't want to be there. Well, I have to beg to differ in a different way. Anything that we do too much of definitely is negative. But when we take our time with that thing, guilt actually is healthy because it kind of shakes us and reminds us of where we are and what we're doing. Cambridge Dictionary defines guilt as a feeling of worry or unhappiness that you have because you did something wrong. So, number one, I know I did something wrong. That's number one. I know I've done something wrong. So I understand that also some of us, we kind of mix or intertwine guilt and shame, but they're different. They are not the same. Again, like I said, with that guilt, it triggers that thing in us, that inner moral compass to say, hey, I did something wrong and I need to correct it. It speaks more of a specific behavior as opposed to ongoing behavior. Now, let's talk about shame because we're going to kind of sit there for a little bit. Shame hurts. It's painful. It gives that feeling of humiliation and distress caused by conscious or unconscious behavior that we know is wrong, foolish behavior. And what begins to happen when we have those feelings of shame? We start, again, replaying those things in our mind. And for many of our communities, when we deal with guilt and shame, we've been taught to get tough, move on, don't stay there, don't worry about it, sweep it under the rug and keep moving. But what ends up happening is we wonder why, when we swept something under the rug 30, 40 years ago, why does that thing seem to keep manifesting in our generations to come? Why do I see that spirit? Why do I see that thing in my daughter, in my niece, in my cousin? Why does it keep coming up? That's because when we talk about shame and we don't deal with it, when we talk about guilt and we don't deal with it, it's going to come up. I often use the analogy, if we keep sweeping stuff under the rug, we're going to have a whole mountain of things that are there that we got to deal with. Now it's way bigger than us dealing with it when we should have at the initial onset. Also, when we talk about shame, it's self-neglect that comes into play, self-destruction. You've ever seen a person who you're like, dog, they had it all together. I just don't understand. What got them strung out on drugs? What made them turn to this life? What was it? I promise you, if you trace it back deep enough, it was something that happened, and shame and guilt were right there at the intersection of that thing. We see people and we're like, I was watching TV the other day and I was looking at the show Hoarders. And, you're like, dog, I can't believe somebody could live in that condition. That thing is way deeper than what we see. It has a lot more to do with, hey, what is that person dealing with? How are they dealing with this thing? What has happened that made them feel like they are not worthy, that they're not worth it? They have to keep running down this road. And many of us, when we go through these situations, we want to forgive. We want to let go. We want to move forward. But it's hard, guys. It's tough. So don't beat everybody up. Understand. And if you have a comment, you can go ahead, write in the chat, and you can drop your comment. You can say whatever it is that you need to say. You can share. This is an interactive forum. There are some obstacles that stop us from being able to get to self-forgiveness, self-judgment, self-blaming. And, I know you might say, well, what if it's my fault? It may be your fault, but sometimes we have things that are real, and then we have those things that are perceived, those things that are not so much. It's like, dog, that it seems so real to me, but did it really happen the way that you think it happened? Some of us are beating ourselves up because we struggle with self-love, the ability to even love ourselves. So we got to make sure that we don't continue that vicious cycle. When we talk about forgiving ourselves, that internal motivation is first and foremost for us to change the behavior. That means we have to stop it. Well, Katrina, how can I stop it? You're not going to probably be able to stop it on your own. It's going to require him. This morning when I was meditating and praying, forgiveness from God is the first and foremost thing that helped me in my walk. It's 1 Peter 5:7 says, cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. So you're not doing this thing by yourself. He's walking with you. We don't have to let that shame just linger. We don't have to let the highlight reel of shame in our mind just keep going and bringing it up. We can forgive ourselves. And I know this series is about us forgiving ourselves, but we're going to, on the next series, talking about forgiving other people. Psalms 103 10 through 11 says he does not deal with us according to our sins. So understand, we are all going to fall short. We're all going to mess up. Even the person that you're looking at and you're saying, why can't my life be like theirs? Why am I not moving like them? And you're beating yourself up for what you see on the outside, but you don't know the person's journey and what they've been through, and you comparing yourself and your hurt, your harm, whatever it is that you've been through. But he says he does not deal with us according to our sin, nor does he repay us for our iniquities. So when he's forgiving us and he's saying, I'm going to give you fresh grace and mercy, we can let that thing go. For as high as the heaven above are on the earth, so great is his steadfast love towards those who fear him. So we got to start peeling back the onions to this thing, because there's layers to it, family. It does take time. Forgiveness, period. Because it's a healing process. Because there are some things we have to release. There are some things we have to let go of. I know for myself, when I think about my struggle with forgiveness, for a long time, I didn't forgive myself for allowing me to be in relationships that I knew weren't productive. I couldn't forgive myself for allowing people to take advantage of me. I couldn't forgive myself for decisions that I made when I was young, even though my life appeared to be well, things appeared to be going well. But when I laid down at night, I would have that highlight reel of everything that I wasn't come back up, of the bad decisions and the choices I made. And then I would sit there and I would be like, but Lord, you say it. And he was like, that's not me. That's you. You have to give it all to me and let it go. I've forgiven you of your sins. Now you have to forgive yourself. And that's why I tell people that part right there, it's a little bit difficult. It's a little bit more consuming, because we live in here. And family, if it resonates with you, go ahead and drop a message in the chat. Let me know what your thoughts are. Has it been easy for you to forgive yourself? There are some things that I had in my life that I still was holding on to from 20 years ago. You know, some decisions that I made that I was like, dog, had I done it this way, my life would have been better. And that's where we get hung up on those shoulda, woulda, couldas. But we can't. We have to be able to let go. And I like to refer to the 4 R's when it comes to, you know, being able to release and let that thing go. Number 1, responsibility. 2, remorse. 3, restoration. 4 is renewal. So the first thing we got to do is accept responsibility. If it's something that we did, we own it. We don't have to go and yell it from the mountaintops. We don't have to say to everybody in the world. But if you've hurt somebody else, if your negligent behavior did it, then yes, you open your mouth and you definitely have to say something. I know that's right. Forgiveness is difficult, but it can be done, Pam. Yes. And Shamika, guilt is, yes, it's consuming. And oh my God, you too? She's saying she prayed until falling to sleep. And we have to, because the highlight reel, it keeps replaying in our mind. So we got to rebuke those spirits. We have to let that thing go. But number 1, accept responsibility. And when I say accept responsibility, I don't mean we got to stay there and beg a person, because God said, once you repent, I forgive you. We don't have to keep going back and forth. The second one is remorse. If you feel guilt, you're supposed to. That is that self-correcting, like, hey, I did something wrong. Let me fix this. Hey, I can't let people treat me this way. Hey, I don't want to hurt somebody because I'm hurt. Hey, I need to deal with this. But we fix it without dwelling. We have the remorse without dwelling. We can't stay there. So when Shamika talking about that guilt consuming and falling asleep, absolutely. I've been there, done that. I'm praying and I wake up and it's like, God, I fell asleep with that thing heavy on my mind. The third R is restoration. Now we have to make sure that we go ahead and amend our mistakes. And some mistakes, I know it looks very different. I'm not trying to surface over this thing or gloss over it, because when I think about people I've spoken with over the last few weeks and they talk about this series and things that they've been dealing with, you know, I have people who talk to me and say, in our family, we had molestation going on. People knew about it and they didn't do anything. And then I knew about it. I didn't do anything, but now I feel bad. And I feel like other kids, other people may have gotten hurt because I failed to say. you know what? Still, we got to make amends and we got to move on. We can't sit in it. We can't stay in it. In our community, a lot of times we like to sweep that stuff under the rug, but we got to deal with it or it will repeat. That vicious cycle will come. It'll come. We have to be able to let it go. And you are right, teacher. It is hard to admit sometimes, but you know what? You don't have to admit it out loud to everybody. Find that one or two people that you can really have that conversation with and you can let it go, because those things, they come up. When I was listening to Paula White, my girlfriend Bernadette sent a message to me this week or last weekend, and she sent a message, and Paula talked about the fact that she didn't let her son go and spend the night anywhere. There were only 3 families that she allowed her son to be able to spend time with and, go spend the night or things of that nature. And I was like, oh, Jesus, that was me. And she was like, I never wanted him to go and be around other people to spend the night because I was abused. That's what she said. She said she was abused. And because she was abused, she held on to her son. And for me, I thought about that thing. I thought about the fact that I worked in a criminal justice system. I saw what children did to other children. I saw what grown men did to children. I saw what women did to children. I saw how hurt people. And that made me not want to let my son spend the night and go to other places. And Paula said she only let her son spend the night with one of 3 families. And one of those families, her son was abused in the care of one of those families. Now, talk about being able to forgive. That thing hit me deep. I was like, oh my goodness. She held on to that because that was her son. And she thought she was doing everything she could to protect him. But one of the people who were in the church family, they hurt her son, and she wondered, why was he being so angry? Why was he being so rebellious? Why was he talking about he was an atheist? A lot of times we got to look at those telltale signs. But even once that thing comes out, still, we got to remember the 4 R's. Responsibility, own it, own my part. Remorse, feeling the guilt, but don't dwell in it. We got to let it go. Or otherwise, we start beating our children. We start beating our husbands, our wives. We start beating them with it. That's why it's so important to let that thing go, to release it. Then there is restoration. Amend it. Let it go. Own it and apologize. Whatever your role was, if you had a role. And you got to identify, is this a real thing that's my fault or is it perceived? We got to remember, if somebody hurt you, that's not you. That's them. But some of us, we beat ourselves up because we say, I shouldn't have dressed that way. I shouldn't have been in that situation. I shouldn't have put myself in those surroundings, and then it would have looked different. No, own your part in the situation, forgive yourself, and then let go. That last R is renewal. Renewal. Focus on what you learned and how you grew from the situation. Because in every bad situation, every negative situation, every difficult situation, we learned, we grew. It was something that came out of it. In many cases, we sit in it and we wallow, but we got to move, family. We can't just stay in that thing. We have to move ourselves beyond it. And when it comes to those family bonds, those family ties, when we were hurt, because sometimes we hold things in and it's like, I don't want to hurt somebody else. I don't want to bring it up. Well, then you're going to have a conversation with Jesus, baby, and you're going to have to let it go. You're going to have to release it to him. Let him have it. Let him deal with it because it's not yours to deal with. I know it's a lot, family. I know it's a lot because there are some times that the highlight reel starts to play in my mind. And I have to remember 1 Peter 5:7, that I can cast all my anxieties and my worries on him because he cares for me. He's going to take care of it. He'll vindicate it. As long as I move forward, I own it. I accept my responsibility. I amend my mistakes. I apologize. I learned something from it. I don't have to repeat it. That's the R that wasn't in there. We shouldn't be repeating it. We shouldn't be repeating it. When we look at our own children, when we look at our husbands, our wives, our siblings, our significant others, we shouldn't be repeating those behaviors with them. Because I was an abused child doesn't mean that I'm going to abuse. At some point, the cycle has to stop. We got to stop. Because I was abused by my spouse, doesn't mean that the next person that I get with, I have to abuse them because I haven't released it. I haven't let it go. And for those who have really hurt other people, because there are those of us out there who have hurt other people knowingly, intentionally, and or not. Family, I've talked before about, my father being killed, or he died at the hand of someone else. I can't say the young man killed him, but his actions killed him. He was in a hit and run accident. And my thought process and my perception on that thing, it looks very different. I feel a different way about it. I can forgive him, but I had to forgive myself too in the process. I had to say, I didn't do that. That wasn't me. That was one of those things where I'm trying to own something that wasn't me. No, I had to forgive myself for the relationship and how I handled things over the years. I was glad that we were able to see one another eye to eye. We were able to have those good conversations and that positive. And I knew he loved me and he knew I loved him. But I can't hold on to it. I have to let it go. I can't beat myself over the head with things that are not my fault. I was talking to a friend the other day, and she spoke about abortion. And I said, there are so many women in the world who have had abortions silently, publicly, whatever the case might be. There are so many women that hear those babies cry at night. So much going on. But family, he already said, cast your cares on him. He loves us. He is going to release it. He forgives us. He knows our hearts. Absolutely. Oh, Shamika, as she said, her father was killed and she was lied to about it for years. And she hated her family for telling. Our next topic is going to be those forgiving family. We're going to have to peel back some of those generational lies, those things that people try to, keep and hide. And it makes me think about, we were watching Madea One Big Family this past weekend. I don't know why. It was probably my first time watching it too. And I was like, I never saw it. And the character who was Bow Wow, who was Byron, they got to the table. The mom was trying to tell them she was dying and, they wouldn't allow her to do so. And she was hurt and she was carrying a lot. And it came out that she was not his mother. In fact, she was his grandmother. And that's a similar example, Shamika, but she held on to it. And that's where we got to give them grace. No, it wasn't what you would have wanted them to do, but understand the hurt, the remorse that they were carrying, the reason that they thought they were trying to protect you from that thing. Imagine how they're feeling. And I know we got to feel for ourselves, but we got to let it go too. We have to get to the root of it. We got to ask questions. And us as a people, we don't like to share it. We just want to say discount it and let it go. But it's some truths that have to be spoken so we can break it, so we can stop it. Family, I pray that our conversation together this morning was one that helped you, that was one that was beneficial. I'm definitely going to share the information, and I pray that you'll copy the link and you'll share it as well on whatever social media platform. But know that I love you. Know that it's a process. But you know what? More than anything, it's a decision. We have to decide. And when we decide, we got to stay with it. We got to commit to it. Because when those highlight reels start playing back in our mind, we got to be able to cut it off. And like Shamika said, sometimes we'll fall asleep praying on that thing and wake up still praying on that thing, because he'll give it to us. He'll give us the release, but we have to want to let it go. We have to want to release it. I love you. I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks on our next topic, our next series on Facing Forgiveness Part 3. We're going to focus on family. I love you guys. Have a great day. Bye-bye.